The palace gardens were not meant to hold mysteries. Their order was perfect. Roses trimmed to exact shapes, fountains murmuring in soft synchrony, paths of crushed white stone glowing faintly in the moonlight. But Princess Elara knew better. Beyond the hedges, where the lanterns dimmed and shadows grew restless, there was a quiet that whispered secrets older than the kingdom itself. She wandered there often, her silk slippers brushing against mossy stones, her golden hair unbound and catching stray moonbeams. Tonight, the air was different, heavy, alive with anticipation. Elara stopped beneath a twisted willow, its branches drooping like a mourner's veil. A soft glow flickered just beyond the hanging leaves, faint as a distant star. She thought it a firefly at first, but as she moved closer, the glow grew sharper, warmer. Then it spoke. "Elara?" the voice murmured. And it wasn't the voice of any creature she knew. It was layered, like wind moving through hollow reeds, both close and impossibly far. Her breath caught. From the golden light emerged a figure no taller than her hand, delicate as frost, but with a presence that commanded the air around her. It was a fairy, its wings shimmering in hues that defied description, its eyes bright as shards of sunlit crystal. What are you?" Elara whispered, her voice trembling between awe and fear. The fairy smiled, its tiny face unreadable. "A messenger, a guide, a sentinel for those who seek more than the walls of a kingdom can provide." The words struck something deep within Elara, something restless and untamed. Her heart quickened, but she steadied herself. "Why have you come to me?" The fairy extended its hand, and in its palm lay a key, its surface etched with spiraling runes that seemed to breathe with faint golden light. Elara stared, captivated. "This," said the fairy, "is a key to a realm unseen by most, a place of boundless wonder, of truths hidden from ordinary eyes. Take it, and you may unlock its door." Elara reached out instinctively, but the fairy's gaze sharpened, halting her. "Yet be warned. The light you seek casts shadows. This realm is as perilous as it is beautiful. Not all who enter return unchanged." The princess hesitated. The fairy's words carried weight, but the key's glow was irresistible, like the pull of a dream too vivid to abandon. With a trembling hand, she took it. The moment her fingers curled around the key, a strange warmth spread through her palm, traveling up her arm and into her chest. It wasn't unpleasant, but it felt alive, as if the key itself recognized her touch. The fairy stepped back, its form fading into the air. "Your path begins at the edge of the forest, beneath the archway of ancient wood. Seek it with courage, Princess Elara, for courage will be your only shield." And then it was gone, as if it had never been. Elara stood alone in the garden, the golden key cool and solid in her hand. The night was still, save for the distant chirping of crickets. She stared at the key, its light dimming to a soft glow. Her heart was a storm of questions. What lay beyond the door it promised? What wonders or dangers awaited? Yet even as doubt nipped at her thoughts, a sense of resolve took root. She slipped the key into her pocket and turned toward the palace. Tonight, she would rest. But when dawn came, she would go to the forest. The whispers of the unknown had called her for years. Now, at last, she had a way to answer. The forest had always loomed at the kingdom's edge, a place of both allure and unease. Its trees stretched high and gnarled, their branches forming a dense canopy that allowed only fractured beams of sunlight to reach the mossy floor. Villagers told stories of strange sights and whispers in its depths, warning against venturing too far. Yet for Elara, it was a place that had always held quiet promise. At dawn, she slipped away from the castle, her steps purposeful, but her heart pounding in rhythm with the song of unseen birds. The golden key hung on a ribbon around her neck, hidden beneath the folds of her traveling cloak. The air thickened as she entered the forest, each step muffled by the soft carpet of pine needles. The light was dim, but the path ahead seemed to guide her, as if the trees themselves shifted subtly to clear her way. She walked for what felt like hours, the key growing warmer against her chest. Then she saw it, the archway. It was unlike anything she had imagined. Two massive trees grew together in a twisting embrace, their trunks entwined to form a perfect oval. The bark shimmered faintly, etched with symbols that mirrored those on the key. At the center of the archway was a door, its surface carved from blackened oak, its edges trimmed with silver. Elara's breath caught in her throat. The door looked ancient, yet it bore no signs of decay. The runes carved into its surface pulsed faintly, alive with an energy that matched the rhythm of the key. She stepped closer, her hand trembling as she pulled the key from beneath her cloak. The moment it touched the door, a low hum resonated through the air, vibrating in her bones. Slowly the door creaked open. What lay beyond defied words. A realm unfolded before her, its beauty unearthly and disorienting. The sky shifted through hues of violet and gold, and floating islands drifted lazily in the air, their surfaces covered in crystalline flowers. Rivers of liquid light wound through the landscape, their glow soft but mesmerizing. Strange creatures flitted about, some winged, some serpentine, their forms both familiar and alien. Elara stepped through the doorway, the key still warm in her hand. The air here was different, thicker, charged with an energy that made her skin tingle. She walked cautiously, the ground beneath her feet soft as velvet and sprinkled with petals that seemed to fall from no visible trees. As she wandered deeper, a sense of unease began to creep in. Though the realm was beautiful, it was also eerily still. No wind stirred the floating islands, no ripples marred the surface of the glowing rivers. The creatures watched her silently, their eyes glinting with an intelligence that felt too knowing. Elara paused by a pool of shimmering water, its surface reflecting the ever-changing colors of the sky. She knelt, dipping her fingers into its warmth. For a moment, she was mesmerized by its glow, but then her reflection shifted. It wasn't her face staring back at her anymore. Instead, she saw a woman cloaked in crimson, her features hidden beneath a hood. The reflection smiled, its expression unsettlingly sharp. Elara jerked her hand back, and the image dissolved into ripples. "Elara!" A voice called from behind her, low and melodic. The princess spun around. Standing a few paces away was the figure from the water's reflection. A woman draped in crimson, her face obscured. "Welcome, child of the key," the woman said, her tone both soothing and strange. "You've come far, and now you stand on the threshold of true wonder." Elara swallowed, clutching the key tightly. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The woman tilted her head, the shadows of her hood shifting slightly. "A guide, perhaps, or an ally. That depends on what you seek. Tell me, princess, what brought you to this place?" Elara hesitated, but the question struck at the heart of her longing. "I came for truth," she admitted. "For a world beyond the ordinary. For something more." The woman's lips curled into a smile beneath her hood. "Ah, but truth is a delicate thing. It reveals as much as it conceals. Come with me, and I will show you the true glory of this realm." Elara felt a flicker of doubt, but the woman extended a hand, her crimson cloak flowing like liquid fire. The princess hesitated only a moment before following, her steps light, but her heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. The path ahead shimmered, and the realm seemed to shift around them, its beauty growing more surreal. Yet somewhere in the back of Elara's mind, a warning stirred, a faint echo of the fairy's parting words. "Light casts shadows. Not all within is what it seems." And though she could not yet name it, she began to sense the faint shadow trailing her steps. The path the woman led Elara down was not a path at all, but a shifting trail of light, weaving through the floating landscapes like a thread through a tapestry. The ground beneath her feet felt alive, pulsing faintly with each step. The air seemed heavier now, thick with a strange, intoxicating sweetness that made Elara's head swim. "You walk on the edge of greatness," the crimson-cloaked woman said, her voice soft yet weighted. "Few have come this far. Fewer still have dared to open the door." Elara didn't respond. Her gaze flicked between the woman's graceful movements and the otherworldly beauty of the realm. A river of molten gold flowed silently to her left, its surface dotted with translucent lilies that glowed faintly. Above, the sky swirled in endless cycles of colors, yet there was no sun, no moon, only the unyielding light. Yet for all its beauty, Something gnawed at Elara's senses. The stillness of the place felt too deliberate, as though every sound, every movement was being held in check by an unseen force. The fairy's warning echoed faintly in her mind. Light casts shadows. At last they reached a clearing. In its center stood a pedestal of black crystal, its surface polished to a mirror-like sheen. Upon it sat a goblet of gold, brimming with a liquid that shimmered like the rivers of light, but swirled with threads of deepest crimson. The sight of it sent an inexplicable chill down Elara's spine. The woman turned to face her. Though her hood still concealed her features, Elara felt the weight of her gaze. "This," the woman said, gesturing to the goblet, "is the essence of this realm. To drink is to see its truth, to claim its power. This is what you sought, is it not?" Elara stared at the goblet, her fingers tightening around the golden key in her hand. The liquid within seemed to call to her, its surface rippling faintly, as though it sensed her presence. Her heart quickened, caught between desire and dread. Elara hesitated. "What does it do?" The woman's lips curled into a smile, a fleeting movement beneath the shadow of her hood. "It reveals," she said simply, "the light, the glory, the boundless truth of this place. It will make you one with the realm, granting you the understanding and wonder you seek." The words were tempting, but Elara couldn't shake the unease growing in her chest. She thought again of the fairy's warning, and the way this woman had appeared, unbidden and unprovoked. Everything about her felt too convenient, too calculated. Elara glanced at the goblet again. Its glow seemed to intensify as if urging her to act. She reached out tentatively, her hand hovering just above the golden rim. The warmth of the liquid was palpable, and for a moment she felt an inexplicable pull, as though her very soul was leaning forward. But then her reflection in the goblet caught her eye. It was distorted, warped by the rippling surface, but what she saw froze her in place. Her own face stared back at her, yet her eyes were wrong, empty and lifeless, like twin voids of shadow. The vision flickered, replaced by another, a flash of the woman's face, no longer hidden by her hood. Her features were grotesque, her skin pale and cracked like dried clay, her eyes burning with malice. Elara recoiled, the key slipping from her hand and clattering softly against the pedestal. The sound shattered the stillness, and for the first time, the woman faltered. Her head tilted sharply, and though her face was still obscured, Elara could feel the sharpness of her gaze. "You hesitate," the woman said, her voice no longer soothing but cold, edged with a sinister undertone. "Why? You have come so far, child of the key. Drink, and all you desire shall be yours." Elara stepped back, her heart racing. "No," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "This isn't what I came for. This isn't right." The woman straightened, and her cloak seemed to dissolve into smoke, revealing her true form. Her limbs were too long, her fingers ending in sharp talon-like points. Her face, now fully visible, was a mask of cruelty, her lips curling back to reveal jagged teeth. Her eyes burned like twin embers, filled with anger and hunger. "You should have drunk," the witch hissed, her voice now a venomous rasp. "But now, you will serve this realm in another way." The clearing darkened, the light of the realm extinguished as shadows began to creep in from every direction. The ground beneath Elara cracked and shifted, and she stumbled as chains of shadow snaked toward her ankles. Panic surged through her, but she clutched the golden key tightly, its warmth a small but vital comfort in the encroaching darkness. The witch's laughter echoed around her, cruel and triumphant, as the shadows closed in. And in that moment, Elara understood. The light of this realm was not its true power. It was the key, pulsing in her hand, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching dark. Yet she did not yet know how to wield it. All she knew was that she would not let the shadows consume her, not without a fight. The ground beneath Elara's feet crumbled into nothingness, and she plunged into a suffocating abyss. Shadows coiled around her, their whispers sharp as broken glass, their touch icy and cruel. The golden key was still clutched in her hand, its faint warmth their only anchor in the consuming darkness. When she landed, the impact stole her breath. She found herself sprawled on a surface cold and hard, the shadows receding just enough to reveal a cavern of obsidian walls that seemed to drink the light. Jagged spires jutted from the ground like the teeth of some enormous beast, and the air was thick with an oppressive weight that pressed against her chest. Above her, the witch descended slowly, her crimson cloak now a shifting mass of smoke. Her grotesque form loomed, her burning eyes fixed on Elara. "You should have accepted the goblet's gift," the witch hissed, her voice echoing through the cavern like the scrape of iron against stone. "But now you shall learn the cost of refusal." With a wave of her clawed hand, tendrils of shadow surged forward, wrapping around Elara's wrists and ankles. She struggled, but the bonds held fast, their chill seeping into her skin. The witch laughed, a sound devoid of mirth, and stepped closer. "You carry the key, but you do not understand its purpose. It is not a gift. It is bait, a lure to draw fools like you into my domain." Elara's heart pounded, but she refused to let fear consume her. She tightened her grip on the key, its warmth a small but persistent defiance against the witch's cold. "Why?" she demanded, her voice trembling but defiant. "Why go to such lengths to bring me here?" The witch's smile twisted, her jagged teeth glinting. "Because this realm is mine," she said. "And all who enter must pay tribute. Your light will feed my shadows. Your strength will fuel my power. The key was merely the lock's invitation, but the cost is your soul. The chains tightened, pulling Elara to her knees. The witch raised her hand, and the cavern began to pulse with a sickly red glow. A low hum filled the air, growing louder, vibrating in Elara's chest. The shadows around her began to writhe, their whispers rising to a crescendo. But amidst the chaos, Elara felt the key's warmth intensify. The runes carved into its surface began to glow faintly, their light pulsing in rhythm with her racing heartbeat. A memory surfaced of the fairy's parting words. Courage will be your only shield. Her courage, her will. The power was not in the key itself, but in her resolve. Focusing her thoughts, she gritted her teeth and pushed back against the chains, envisioning them breaking. The warmth of the key flared, and the light of its runes grew brighter. The shadows recoiled slightly, as though burned by its glow. The witch's eyes narrowed, and her voice became a snarl. "Foolish child, you think your defiance can stand against me?" But Elara did not waver. She closed her eyes, letting the key's warmth spread through her, filling her with a strength she hadn't known she possessed. The light from the key grew blinding, illuminating the cavern in golden radiance. The shadows shrieked, their tendrils dissolving into smoke. The witch recoiled, shielding her face with her arms. "No!" she screamed, her voice fractured with fury and fear. "You are mine! You cannot escape!" Elara rose to her feet, the golden light now surrounding her like a shield. She pointed the key at the witch, and a beam of pure light shot forth, piercing through the darkness. The cavern trembled, the obsidian walls cracking and crumbling as the witch's form began to dissolve, her screams fading into the void. As the last of the shadows evaporated, the cavern collapsed into a cascade of light. Elara felt herself lifted, the golden glow enveloping her, carrying her upward. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a sense of freedom and clarity. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the forest, standing before the blackened door. The key in her hand was now cool, its runes dim but still faintly glowing. The door creaked shut behind her, sealing the realm away. Elara stood in silence, her breath steadying. She looked down at the key, no longer seeing it as a mere object, but as a reminder of the strength she had discovered within herself. The witch's trap had been sprung, but it had failed to claim her. Instead, she had claimed something far greater, the power of her own courage. The world around Elara was still as she stood in the clearing before the now silent door. The golden key hung heavy in her hand, its glow faint but steady, like the last ember of a dying fire. The air was no longer charged with the strange vitality of the magical realm, but the echoes of her journey lingered in her mind, as vivid and haunting as a dream not yet forgotten. The witch was gone, but her voice seemed to linger. Her promises and threats still whispering faintly in the back of Elara's mind. You carry the key, but you do not understand its purpose. Elara tightened her grip on the key, her gaze dropping to the runes that had once pulsed with such radiant energy. Now they seemed dormant, etched into the metal like scars. For the first time since her journey began, she felt the weight of what she had endured. Not just the physical trials, but the shadows that had threatened to claim her very soul. But the forest was quiet now, its stillness no longer menacing but peaceful. Sunlight filtered through the trees, dappling the ground with patches of gold. The oppressive shadows of the magical realm were gone, replaced by the familiar hum of nature. The ordinary world had never seemed so vivid, so alive. Elara sank to her knees, exhaustion seeping into her bones. She let the key rest on the moss beside her, its glow fading further until it was no brighter than a shard of pale sunlight. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the forest embrace her. You have done well, princess. The voice startled her, though it was soft and melodic. Elara opened her eyes to see the fairy standing before her, the same radiant figure who had given her the key. The fairy's expression was serene, though her eyes held a trace of sorrow. You survived, the fairy said, stepping closer. You faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Few who take the key ever return. Elara sat up, her gaze steady. You knew what would happen, she said, her voice calm but firm. You knew the key would lead me into a trap. The fairy nodded, her wings shimmering faintly. Yes, the key is a test, Elara. A challenge for those who seek more than what their world can offer. The witch was a guardian of sorts. Her shadows a reflection of the fears and doubts within you. To face her was to face yourself. Elara frowned, her fingers brushing the key. And if I had failed, if I had given in, then the shadows would have consumed you, the fairy said simply. But you did not fail. You trusted your courage, your light. That is the true power of the key. It does not grant you strength. It reveals a strength you already possess. The words settled over Elara like a balm, soothing the ache in her heart. She thought of the chains of shadow, the suffocating darkness, the witch's mocking laughter, and how she had fought back, not with magic or might, but with the sheer force of her will. The key no longer glows, Elara said softly, lifting it in her hand. The runes were dim, the golden surface tarnished. Is its power gone? The fairy smiled. The key has fulfilled its purpose. Its light was never its own, but a reflection of yours. You no longer need it. Elara stood, the key cool and familiar in her palm. She turned it over, studying its intricate carvings. For all its beauty, it now felt unremarkable. A simple object, unburdened by magic or mystery. Yet it carried the weight of her journey, a reminder of the courage she had discovered. What happens now? She asked. her gaze meeting the fairy's. "That is up to you," the fairy said. "The door is closed, and the realm is behind you, but the strength you found within yourself is yours to carry forward. Use it wisely, princess. Your kingdom needs a leader who knows the light within her own heart." The fairy's form began to fade, her shimmering wings dissolving into the sunlight. "Farewell, Elara. Remember, the key was never the answer. You were." And then she was gone, leaving Elara alone in the clearing. The forest seemed to exhale, its gentle breeze brushing against her face. The weight that had pressed upon her since the fairy first appeared now lifted, leaving her lighter, freer. Elara slipped the key into the pocket of her cloak. Though its magic was spent, she could not bear to leave it behind. It was a symbol, not of the realm she had left, but of the strength she had found. With one last glance at the silent door, she turned and began the journey back to her kingdom. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Elara felt no fear. The unknown no longer held her captive. It was hers to face, hers to conquer. The golden key rested against her heart, a quiet reminder of the light she carried within.